Five, four, three, two, one. Hello, 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 and welcome back to Space Engineers on the Xbox on the Series X. And this is the next part of the large ship in Creative. As you can see, this large ship is now free from the platform and it's just floating there on hydrogen. Now, if you were building this in survival, my suggestion would be, of course, to ensure that it was connected to the platform to keep the batteries charged and to ensure you're not wasting all that fuel keeping it aloft. You can turn the engines off and so on. Doesn't matter in creative though, really. What I want to do on this one is I want to look at the rear bay of the ship. And what we're going to do is we're just going to cut out these blocks up to here and these two here. The same deal along here and here. You can see what I'm doing. My idea was that I wouldn't mind a couple of refiners and assemblers on this ship to turn it into a bit of a mobile headquarters. So to do this, I want to throw in refinery. Now, as I said before, building them up like that would give me more space, but in the end, look, it's easier up and down like this. So, a couple of refineries, and we can actually utilize these as well quite nicely if we just think about popping a conveyor block, and we'll be using quite a few conveyor blocks on this rather than just the pipes, because conveyor blocks act as seals. Conveyor junctions. One there. We put here. Then we've now linked up this system to the refiners. That means if we refine any uranium ore and it turns to ingots, it should get pulled into the reactors without us having to mess about. Okay, so let's see. Survival kit to the assemblers. We only want a couple of assemblers. We don't want to drive ourselves mad with power requirements. So just a couple of assemblers. We can put one in co-op. I'll show you how to do that in a bit. But first of all, we want a way to not only access the assemblers, but also to store bits and pieces. So I'm going to drop in cargo container here and one here. While I'm at it, actually thinking about it, I want to rename my large cargo container. Call it fuel. So I know that I can dump ice and uranium in that. When I'm searching through, I know which one's which. So we have assemblers, a couple of small cargo containers, And I'm thinking at the moment, I want at least a couple of large cargo containers on the outside of the ship for storage. What we're going to do is we're going to remodel this side here a bit. See what we need to do. Take advantage of one of these about here. So we're going to need to take out some of the existing blocks on this one. So 2, 6, say. There. And we're going to, while we're at it, if you remember, this is our closed storage for the oxygen system. We're going to throw on a connector there so we don't forget. And then we're going to go across the control panel on this one. We're going to call this large cargo container 2. Actually, we're going to call it large cargo storage. We're going to do the same over here. We're going to call this 1. Storage. Here we go again. Right, so now we should have access to our storage there and access to the storage there. This means that we can literally seal this section here. We pop a conveyor section there and there. There and there, and then we just drag this lot to here and here. We should now have storage connected through to the assemblers and the refiner. Fingers crossed. We can check that out. What do we want? We want, let's get some, actually, have I got anything on me? Let's get some iron ore, shall we? So if we go to the spawn menu, tapping in the right stick, using the right trigger, opening the spawn menu, and going down, we reach iron ore. Select that with A, pull down on the left stick, and then type in the amount you want, let's say 999, and then spawn object. Hit the right trigger, press X to pick it up. Let's see what happens if we just drop this iron ore in here. Bear in mind that this is a completely gone. So it's been pulled out through that box, down here, and it may, there we go, it's been processed by this refinery over here. Now, when you're pulling things aboard a ship like that requires a system that involves a refinery, you don't have to worry about cargo sorters. The conveyor sorter block shouldn't have to be used because the system will automatically drag things in. And that's all we really want, because this is a generic storage, ore storage. This isn't a combat ship. It's just a ship that I'm using as part of this tutorial series coming together. And so what we want to do now is, now we know that that works, we want to pop to any control panel like this, and we want to go across to our production tab with the right trigger, and you'll see that we have an assembler listed and a second assembler. List of available assemblers here. And so we want that second assembler to go into co-op mode. So with that selected, assembler 2, we want to come across to assembling, and you'll see on the production crew you've got a couple of icons, production queue even, not crew, a couple of icons, and if you click that one you'll put the assembler into co-op, so it'll help the other assembler while building. So far so good. Yeah, we've still got a problem. But we'll sort that out in a bit. At the moment, air is escaping out through here. So to seal, all we need to do, or should need to do, is drag 2 blocks there, blocks there, and there we go. We've sealed the ship again. This is because when they're placed like this, these blocks form a seal on both sides. And assemblers and cargo containers and conveyor junctions are all airtight. That's our refiner and assembler system. It's a bit dark in here at the moment, but we'll add some lights later on. That's not the important bit so far. We've got that. Now this whole system is actually running on hydrogen fuel. So a thought I have had is that at the moment we don't have a medical bay on this thing, so we've got no place on this ship to respawn, and we could have a survival kit. A medical room, on the other hand, if we look at them, could fit there. It would not be within the realms of possibility to have a medical room pop there. To do so, if you look at the bottom of the medical room, we have that whole thing there. So what we can do is we could look at maybe very simple seal. Using our favourite conveyor junctions, like so. chemical even, because I didn't put it down, it didn't count as there. And I should be able to just put that medical bay there. And it should be piped in using a very small amount of the ship's ice generated and from the O2 H2 generator, because remember, all this is linked through using those conveyor blocks at the back. So as I said before, if we refine some uranium ore into ingots, those should disappear and get pulled into the system. So if we go to here again, go down all the way, uranium ore, select it, spawn object, pick it up, and slap it in the refinery. Start, and there you go. You'll see that uranium ore is disappearing. Let's expand here. There you go. One of the large reactors is getting uranium in it already. So if we drop uranium ore on the outside as well, it will get pulled through into the system, refined, and sent through to the reactors at the back. Save that off. That's what I wanted. So now we have that kind of system. Now, because we've got an oxygenated atmosphere, we could as well utilize this through in a couple of beds, which would allow us a little bit of a homely atmosphere, but you'd be sleeping in the workshop, and you don't really want the beds in the front here, unless you were going to think about having yet another oxygenated space by splitting this across. It would mean you had a very small airlock area created and a very, very cozy area at the back for sleeping. Do it though. I mean, we've got a conveyor there into the oxygen system, so all we'd have to do is put a little thingy in there. It would also mean putting in more doors, and we'd have to add those doors onto our auto closing system. Again, not too hard. Your airlock would literally be there, unless we snapped that, but sure, we could bring it forward a bit. Half the fun of these things is iteration on your original concept. So let's see if we can cut that there, cut that there, snap that, and then put the conveyor junction in there, pop that there, and stick our, get the air vent back. First the lights that way on this one. Now that frees us to look at potentially sealing this. Snap that and drop a junction in. This will be our little airlock at the back. There it is. I'll get to that. We'll need a vent here as well. We'll want to control panel. Go to our timer block door control. I want to go to our groups actually. Up here. Show you the whole list so you can see how long it can take. You can hide some of these. We've got ship doors, and so with that selected, if we come down here, we'll see when we get to the ship's doors, we've got our sliding doors. If you hold down the right bumper and tap A, you'll add that automatically to that list, or rather you'll add it to that list, and then if we move to the save part and hit save, that will now become part of our system. It's pretty good. And it's all working. You see it oxygenates this little room. And in this little room now, we can look at just adding a little bit more in the way of never remember where they put. Oh, a little more in the way of comfort. And if you're going to be playing with, say, 4 people, well, there's enough room here. Thinking about it, what a crack. Yeah, thought so. I prefer the blank wall. So yes, we can pop in beds. You can orientate them how you want. You can have them up like that if you want. Remember, we do have gravity on the ship, so green axis. So we've got some beds. Because we're in an oxygenated atmosphere, these beds will allow us to recharge. We still have access to the cockpit, come in and out, and right the way down here. And now we've got the refiners, the assemblers, a way of creating oxygen into the medical bay and pulling all the things from the boxes on the outside of the ship, such as the ore, automatically into the refinery. We pretty much got the interior that you want. If you're only going to have a couple of people, then, well, you could replace these beds. If you're role-playing, then obviously you want to add more amenities. That's going to be trickier on a ship like this. Unless, of course, you put the amenities in the area you're going to use for the airlock. Not impossible. I mean, this is a very simple two-stage airlock, so it's going to allow access like that. We can automate it, depressurize the air vents and so on. We may look at that a bit later on. But this ship is coming together. There's the new cargo containers, and you have complete access on the outside at the moment. Obviously, there's no access to dock a ship or station and transfer things across. You have to do it manually at this precise moment in time. The only access point on the ship for any kind of connection will be here, but that is now linked via all of this to these boxes as well, because it all runs through the conveyor pipes linking into that system at the back, with that box for storing our uranium and ice. Then we have our closed oxygen system at the top, where we can put ice. And then these storage boxes can be for anything. Ores will be pulled aboard the ship automatically, as I demonstrated before. I'll demonstrate that again. You can put directly into a box as well from the spawn. So if you tap the right stick, go down here to open spawn menu, and we select our uranium ore, and we spawn into the targeted container instead of spawn object, and it will go in to the targeted container. It'll be gone by now and pulled through into the system. There you are. We have the makings of a large grid ship with a bit more functionality. We're getting there slowly but surely. We will be looking at, obviously, fleshing out more of the interior in the next one. And based on how this ship comes together, I'll look at the outside, changing the way it looks. So all of this sort of skeleton will vanish into something a bit more aesthetically pleasing. But first of all, obviously, I want to make sure that this thing actually gets us out there. So once I'm happy with the amount of thrusters and so on and so forth, in the next one I think I'll be looking at adding the thrusters to the cockpit properly and showing you how to group up the thrusters correctly, as I've done before in the past, so that you don't make the mistake that some people do and that can cause dramatic problems to your ship when you're grouping thrusters and you accidentally use the D-pad. When you use the D-pad and you're grouping thrusters, it can cause a lot of issues. You go to the control panel, for instance, and if I type thruster See, we already have a group. Now imagine if you're grouping, let's say, all these thrusters and just reached bottom of the list, and you want to save the group, so you go across here, you're all right if you use the D-pad. But there is a chance, depending on where you are on that list, of accidentally catching using the D-pad, unless Keen have fixed it, which I don't think they have, and I always think it's safer to do it anyway. But there is a chance if you use the D-pad and push across to the right, you notice how it goes across to show block in terminal. It can go across to thrust override, and if you're trying to go across to the block group, that happens. Instantly, you will catch the thrust override on those thrusters, and you will turn it to its lowest point. At which point, well, it's going to drop quite dramatically, like that, and damage your ship. So all that work you've put in is null and void. And if you're playing on a server, there ain't no coming back from that. If you're playing on survival and you've been saving, then you're in luck. If you're playing on creative and you've been saving like me, hold down the right bumper, press Y, go to your replay tool, hit reload world, press A, and wait for Space Engineers to reload your save. Depending on the amount of mods you've got on your save, depends exactly on how long it takes to load. If you're playing the game on a series console, especially an X, the load times are dramatically reduced and we're back to normal. One way to stop this happening is to slap a merge block onto your ship and onto your gantry, and then maneuver your ship onto the merge block, lock it in place, and that way if you do accidentally hit your thrust override, your ship's not to go plummeting down to the ground and to break. But there you go. That is the next part of my large grid ship build. Stay tuned for the next one of this particular series. I should be able to start putting more videos up as my workload decreases. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with me. Thank you very much for liking and subscribing. Helps out a lot. And I will see you next time. Take care. Have fun. Enjoy the game. Bye-bye.